What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall market. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon in just about 3 days. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. Tesla's once again in the red, which is not necessarily a surprise as the stocks continue to make lower highs and lower lows. I did call out yesterday how Tesla's going to likely see a little pop when we open before it continues to dip. And as you can see, Tesla retested 342 only to continue to dip back down. So now Tesla's barely holding its 50 EMA. If we lose this, we will be likely coming down to fill this gap. And as long as we hold above that, we could still attempt to consolidate in this range. So I'll be watching this very closely. Just notice a lot of headlines coming out involving Tesla. The first thing that's very significant is the fact that there's been a lot of talk about how the EV buyer credits for California have excluded Tesla, which is not the best of news. This is very political, of course, and that's not what a lot of people want to hear. I just want to say something about this. Yes, this is a little bit more negative news for Tesla for the shorter term, but for the long term, Tesla is going to be completely fine as they develop new technologies and they depend less on these tax credits. So I think the tax credits shifting away in Tesla's favor will be negative for Tesla for the short term. That's part of why Tesla is dipping alongside some other headlines. The news is screaming that Cathie Wood is selling Tesla shares and this and that. Honestly, guys, when you look at how much of a position ARK is holding, Tesla makes up more than 14% of their overall weight for their portfolios. And then you also have to remember the fact that, Cathie Wood's holding almost $1 billion worth of Tesla right now. Selling like 10 million, 20 million at a time is just completely normal. These fund managers tend to just reposition all the time. So it's not really a big deal to me. Anyways, for other pieces of news, just know this. Tesla has about 57 million in volume. That's below average. We're getting very low volume right now. The short volume is just very flat. And then on top of that, UBS gave Tesla a sell rating. They do have a price target of about like 226. They think Tesla's not fundamentally backed when it comes to the way it's moving. That's part of why Tesla saw a bit of a dip. And there's also a technical aspect that's causing Tesla to dip as well. When it comes to the price-price ratio, it's dipping a bit as Tesla's losing some strength compared to the market. Not really a surprise. And also when it comes to seasonality, we do tend to be green only about 49% of the time on Fridays, whereas we tend to see more volatility at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Besides that, there's not really a whole lot else that's going on. There's been a lot of talk about AI and Tesla's full integrations, but I didn't see anything that's too crazy as well, at least on the news. Now, all the data came out for today. We had inflationary numbers, GDP numbers, not to mention jobs numbers. Everything was quite decent. Everything was very close to expectations. The market was holding up and trying to push as we approached the data releases. And by the time they came out, we saw this big rug pull in the market. So it's not really a surprise. So just know this, for tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday. It's going to be Thanksgiving. The stock market is going to be closed. The New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the banks, and etc. There's not going to be trading for tomorrow. However, for Friday, it's going to be November 29th. The market will be open again, and we have very, very minor data, just half a day of trading. So once again, for earnings, there's not really much coming out. Thursday is going to be just very quiet. There's no earnings data, but then Friday's when we come back for just half a day. Anyways, I'm going to go over the majority of these tickers very quickly before I conclude this video. As far as Tesla goes, we're barely holding this 330 area. We'll have to see if we get a bounce off this. I presume on Friday/early next week, it's going to try to rebound just a little bit into the mid 330s. And then we could start to dip lower if 330 fails this time. We could be dipping for that gap fill. It does look like Tesla wants to fill this gap. It looks a little bit more probable. We'll look for a little rebound attempt on Friday, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get from there. So break 339, we're going to be looking for the mid 340s. That's going to be a little bit more bullish. And if we lose 330, we turn more bearish. Otherwise, our range is now between 330 and 339 for the majority of price action. That's between our 20 and 50 EMAs. I presume there's going to be a small bounce and a continuation lower as the most likely possibilities. So please keep that in mind. As far as SPY goes, we're looking for a very, very big test here. And I think that this is also going to affect the way Tesla moves. So once again, guys, for Tesla, we're just range bound here. But if we lose support, we start dipping. But that's also going to be somewhat affected by the way SPY moves. That's why I'm calling that out. So for SPY, essentially, this is what's going to happen, okay? We're going to essentially attempt to rebound just a bit. We might try to fill this imbalance. So look for a push and attempt to get back up to 600. If we break this high, if we break the highs here and over here, then we're going to most likely attempt to be pushing for 604 and breaking all-time highs to push like this, and the market could attempt to rebound. But we don't know for sure if that's going to happen because every time we hit 600, SPY is getting rejected. So what if we hit 600 and we get a rejection here? If we do that, that could be a sign that we're about to switch our trend, and the market could see a little bit of a pullback approaching December before something else happens like that. But just keep that in mind. There is a possibility of a pullback if we establish a lower high here and reject. And if we lose our 20 EMA, which is currently around that 590, 597 area, we have this 20 EMA right here, and that's going to most likely cause a little bit more downside. So in a nutshell, here's what's going to happen Friday. I expect a little bit more upside, a small little push during the pre-market. And if we get a rejection, we don't hold above 600, we're going to be likely coming back down to 597 to retest our 20 EMA. And if that fails us, that's going to be a sign this is about to pivot, and we're going to be looking for a pullback on SPY. If it's the opposite, we end up breaking the highs, we remain more bullish. It looks like it's going to try to push a bit, but we'll see if we get a rejection to start dipping lower. So keep that in mind for SPY. ES loves to bounce off its 20 EMA. This happened 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So I expect a little bounce on either Friday or Monday, depending on how things end up going. And we could be trying to fill this imbalance around 6,030. But just like SPY, it's the same thing, basically. We're going to attempt to rebound a bit, just like this. If we break this resistance, then it's possible we try to break out for new all-time highs like this. But if we can't break this resistance right here, if we come short and we just fill this imbalance and start to consolidate again, there's going to be a risk of us starting to pivot a bit as we approach December and get a small little pullback before we start to see a bounce later on again. But there could be a pullback and a bit of a trend shift if we make a lower high here and we lose this low right here at 6,013. So keep that in mind, okay? So look for a push. To start things off, we're going to be looking for a push for about 6,030. And we'll see if we get a rejection to start dipping back down below 6,013 to start turning more bearish, or if we continue to break out. This will depend on the options chain and other factors, so we're just going to wait and see what happens with that. For Nvidia, I anticipate a little bit of a rebound. We're trying to retest 135.8. That's our 200 EMA. If we break this, Nvidia goes back up to about 138. There might be a small bounce coming, which could help the market rebound a bit. But then don't forget, Nvidia is still downtrending because we are still making lower highs and lower lows. So if we do get a bounce, do we reject off 138 and then start dipping back down to 132 again? Or do we break past 138 to turn bullish? I anticipate there's going to be a small attempt to bounce, and Nvidia will try to push for 135.8 and eventually 138 if that breaks. But then we could still get a rejection, start dipping lower after that. So I'll be waiting for that just to be safe. For Bitcoin, we're making lower highs right here, but just know we do have this imbalance up here. Bitcoin could try to retest 94,900 and try to bounce. So we'll have to see if we get a bounce on Bitcoin. It's attempting to rebound. We'll give this some time to develop. But look for a little retest of 94,900 for now, and we'll see what it does from there. For NQ, we are looking a little bit weaker. We're going to be likely retesting 20,880. If we hit this range and reject, this could be dipping back down to 20,700. If we break this, we're looking for a bigger push. If anything, the 21,000 areas where we have this tough resistance to run a bit of an uptrend, but we're starting to break structure right here. Because it's breaking structure, what has to happen is we try to push like this. We got to try to break these highs to remain more bullish. If we come short of breaking the highs, so if we don't break out like this, if we don't break past the 21,000 area, if we come short, that's a sign that this could reject and this is going to start to pivot a bit. This might start coming back down towards these lows. So just keep that in mind. Those are going to be your levels to watch for. For the QQQ, same setup. I do anticipate some upside for Friday. So basically, we're going to try to push higher for this 507 area. If we break the high at 510, we're looking for essentially 512 like that. If we come short and we don't break past 510, it could hit that, then reject and start to slow down just a bit for a small pivot, which is very possible. The 4 hour is starting to show some weakness, so there is that possibility. I also want to call out the fact that we are forming kind of like an inverse cup and handle right here. That might lead to some downside if we truly do kind of push and reject. You could also draw out a fib level right here to look at our 0.786, which aligns very close to this imbalance up here near 507. But overall, as far as the QQQ goes, I expect a little bit more upside for Friday morning, and then we'll see what happens after that. This could also just be during the pre-market. And then if we get a rejection, this will be establishing a lower high and trying to turn back down for 500. If 500 breaks on the QQQ, we're looking for essentially 495 as our target. So keep that in mind. So look for a lower high to be established, and we'll see if we get that rejection. Apple's on a very, very nice upturn. We're going to be looking for a test of 236 again. Watch and see what kind of reaction we get up there. And then we'll see if we get a rejection, because 236 to 237 is a very tough resistance. We are known for rejecting there. So look for a push for 236, and we'll see if we get a rejection back down for about 233. For other factors out there, we have Netflix, which is range bound, is trying to bounce here. It closed above its 20 EMA, which is a good sign. So I anticipate this high is going to be retested at 880. So 880 to 890 might be retested, and we'll see if we get a rejection, start dipping back down for 870. So look for a little bit more upside, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. So watch that very closely. As far as MSTR goes, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We had a high here, came down, and a lower high came down. Could be making another lower high before it starts to dip. But because of the fact that Bitcoin is trying to push, this might try to push a little bit more. If we manage to break past 396, we're looking for 400 and 420 as our targets. We happen to have a nice fib retracement that could be drawn here, which would make me think that we could be retesting potentially around that 420 area if we break past 400, then possibly. So I anticipate some upside. I think this is going to try to push a little bit for that 396 area, then eventually 400, maybe 420, and then. But the problem is we are making lower highs though. So we have to break this high here to turn back to bullish at 450. If we make a lower high, there's still that risk of this rejecting. So I hope that's as clear as possible. We want to see it do something like this where it breaks out like this to turn bullish. If it does not break this high right here, it could once again start coming back down. So if it makes a lower high and so gets stopped at like 420, we could revisit the lows and this could just be another rejection. And we could just continue to downtrend as we have this downtrend being present like this. So this could actually drag us lower just like that, right? But anyways, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be precise, but that's just based off the fib level. There could be a downtrend as we're making lower highs. Celsius is trying to rebound exactly as we predicted yesterday. This might attempt to get closer to about 29 before it tries to reject, but just know we're at some tough resistance. So if we hit 29 reject, we're going to be coming back down to 27.5. If we break that, we're going to remain more bullish. I anticipate a little bit more upside before we see a big reaction. Supermicro is range bound. Break 37, we're looking for 40. And if we lose 33, we're looking for 30 as our target. There is a problem with Supermicro. We hit this tough support becoming resistance, and it's looking like it might reject here. So it might pop a bit before it comes back down to 33. So keep that in mind. Palantir is on a nice uptrend right here. It might retest 64.5. If it bounces off that, we're looking for 68 as our targets. If we lose 64.5, we dip back down to 62. So far, this is looking bullish for a small dip and a bounce for that 68 area. Rivian is more bullish, looking for 12.5. That breaks, we're looking for a bigger pump. If we lose support at 11.8, we're looking for essentially 11.34. So I think 12.5 is likely coming, so keep that in mind, guys. There's a lot more upside potential for this. So far, it's more bullish. It could be trying to break out for 16.5. Got a small dip right here, and then we bounced off our 200 EMA. So 16.5 is going to be our target. It looks quite bullish for now, and we could be continuing this squeeze. The IWM is not looking that great. It's making lower highs right here. It needs to break past 245 to turn bullish. If not, if we can't break past 242, there's a risk of us slowly inching down towards 240 near our 20 EMA before it tries to bounce again. But there could be a small dip coming. AMD should try to rebound for 138, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. It did dip quite a bit without getting some kind of bounce. So I think we try to retest 138, and we'll see if we get a rejection off that. But overall, even if we do rebound a bit, the trend is bearish as we're making lower highs and lower lows. Look for a bounce for 38 and then 138, and then we'll see what it does from there. ARM is bearish, but just like AMD, it might try to rebound for 135. 135 to 136 could be retested, and we'll see if you reject off that or not. But overall, it's on a downtrend, so just be very careful with this. Coin is going to try to break out a little higher. We could be approaching the 318 to 320 area. I do see some potential in the 4 hours, so this might just slowly inch its way up for 320, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not off that. For a few more, Amazon's looking decent. If we lose 205, look for 203. If those two fails, we turn bearish. If we break past 208, we're looking for 210 as our resistance. If that breaks, we start breaking out for that 212 area. So I think what's happening is we are trying to make higher highs and higher lows, and it held support nicely. So it might try to push for that 208 area, but just know that there's a tough resistance near 210, and we haven't been able to crack past that yet. Look for a push for 208, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get from there. Meta may also attempt to push for basically 572. We'll see if it rejects or not off that as well, but look for a little bit more upside for a temporary push. Microsoft looks a little bit more bearish. We have to see if we could hold 420 to 419.5. Watch that range, and we'll see if we bounce off that, so give that some time as well. Google, it needs to break 171 to hit 173, and if we lose 170, we're looking for 168. It's in the middle, so give it some more time to develop. The VIX is more bearish for now. It's making lower highs and lower lows. There's no sign of a bounce yet as the market still could get bought back up. But be careful because the VIX is approaching its very important support territory between 13 and 14. It's been bouncing off that for the last couple of months. And let me just show you what I'm talking about. So if you look since like August, we bounced off 14, 14, 14, and 13. There are instances where it goes all the way down to the 12s before it gets the bounce. So we'll have to see if we get a bounce into 13s or not. as of right now, it's trying to base here. So just be careful. If this gets a big breakout, that could be bearish. So we'll have to see if that happens soon. The 10-year dipped a bit because of the Fed after the FOMC minutes came out announcing more potential cuts, and the dollar is also dipping, not really affecting the market as much as it used to. So, with that being said, for Tesla, just know there is weakness on the chart as we're making lower highs and lower lows. We are in a range right now, but if we lose 330, we're going to be looking for that gap fill all the way down here is the most likely possibility. But watch for confirmation if we lose our 50 EMA. With that being said, that's it for my update for the rest of the day. I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a good weekend and peace out.